Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. Free trips to Orlando, cruises to the Bahamas, offers that sound too good to be true but are just routine in Florida's booming discount travel industry.
After a lengthy investigation, Call for Action reporter Patrick Comer has found that thousands of consumers are being ripped off by misleading travel claims. Patrick, just how big of a problem is this?
Well, the Florida Department of Consumer Services receives more than 4,000 travel-related complaints each month, most of them dealing with travel vouchers like this one. And state officials estimate that the 4,000 they get each month, that's only 1/10 of the number of travel complaints that are actually out there. The problem is national in scope and is giving Florida, frankly, the reputation as the travel scam capital of the nation. Every year, thousands of vacationers visit Freeport in the Bahamas. Most leave happy. But as many as there are who visit and enjoy Freeport, there are thousands of unhappy people who either never received their vacation cruise they were promised or received a trip that was far inferior to what they were promised. They are the victims of Florida's infamous discount travel certificate industry. These certificates or vouchers are given away as gifts at timeshare resorts, sold through newspaper ads like this one, sold over the phone by telemarketers, or offered as a so-called prize. Most of the travel certificate companies operate out of Florida.
There's easily 500,000 certificates out there from all those companies.
500,000?
Mm-hmm. More than you could ever send to Florida and the Bahamas every day for the next 3 years on the prices they're charging.
And that's part of the problem. According to court records filed by the Florida Attorney General, just one Florida company, Shore Travel, has failed to deliver vacations to 10,000 to 12,000 consumers.
Our state is getting a reputation, fairly or otherwise, as being a haven for these discount travel houses.
But the companies are located in the state of Florida, and as such, they give this state a bad reputation. And I would think that it is our obligation and responsibility to make sure this doesn't happen so often in Florida.
What's the reputation of Florida?
Scam capital of the nation.
Rosemary Bonta, the director of South Florida's Better Business Bureau, says her office is nearly overwhelmed by complaints dealing with travel vouchers.
I would say our office spends about 80% of everybody's time just on vacation travel certificates. 80%.
Right. This is a free gift.
The complaints of Margie and Earl Burke are typical. They received a travel voucher as a gift for listening to a timeshare presentation.
We knew that we had to pay the $99, okay, but we didn't know that there would be more monies included, so that when we...
Well, by the time it was all said and done, the Burkes wound up paying more than $300 for that so-called gift. Now, their complaints of undisclosed expenses and misleading advertising are very common, and we tried to talk with Royal American before it was shut down by the state, but our calls were never returned. Talked to Shore Travel as well, and they frankly blamed all their problems upon the state. Now, tomorrow, Florida Certificate Company will take a look at a Florida travel certificate company that allegedly owes consumers more than $130,000.
All right, we'll look forward to that, Patrick. Thank you.
I bawled the whole way back yesterday on the way back from the ship because I'm thinking, this is supposed to be our honeymoon.
She wasn't a happy camper.
Richard and Carol Ray wanted a memorable honeymoon. They got it, but not the memories they wanted. They're just two of hundreds of travelers stranded on the docks by Royal American Holidays, a big-time seller of travel vouchers. There are also hundreds more all around the country who feel they've been ripped off by Royal American and have filed complaints with Florida's Department of Consumer Services.
A lot of unhappy people.
Oh, yes. It's tremendously. It's a lot more than you might imagine. The numbers are so big that they're really hard to keep track of them.
Alex Suspendez worked for Royal American Holidays. He says a bad conscience finally forced him to leave.
I was losing my sleep. It's not right. It's not fair. People is getting burned left and right. And we're talking about $200, $300 a person. That's a lot of money. When I'm talking about at least 500 people I got on refunds on those files.
These are the files Suspendez is talking about, a computer printout showing hundreds of consumers owed thousands of dollars by Royal American. A Royal American company memo shows refunds owed total more than $138,000. That's just to consumers, and some of that money has been owed a long time. Howard King, for example, from Tennessee, was asking for a refund as far back as July of 1991, and still asking for it June 1st of this year. Was Royal American simply broke?
The corporation purchased a yacht at one point. We hear that they had a captain and a crew, and it looks like they were all living very well.
George Gore, one of the directors of the corporation, lives in this guarded community where home prices start at $500,000. The state attorney general has accused Royal American of fraud, misleading advertising, and bait-and-switch sales tactics. Assistant State Attorney General Rhonda Lapin says the company offered people low-cost trips that couldn't be fulfilled and so needed to upgrade consumers to higher-priced hotels in the Bahamas. This Royal American memo shows how telemarketers were obligated to upgrade at least 9 trips per shift.
For a mandatory upgrade, to me, it would look as though they don't want to sell the basic package. They want to get more money from you.
The state also alleges Royal American used misleading promotions. Look at this photograph in a Royal American brochure. With its name plastered across the front, this impressive building looks like it's owned by Royal American. But Alex Suspendez says the words Royal American Holidays never have been across the building. He says the photograph was doctored. Actually, Royal American only has this one office in the building.
This is misleading.
When we tried to talk to company officials, we found the door locked, and our phone calls requesting an interview were also never returned.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. The letter in the mail or the phone call you get says you've won a trip to the Bahamas or a free travel voucher, but is it really free, and do you always get what you're promised?
That's right. Call for Action reporter Patrick Comer has been investigating the claims of several travel certificate sales companies in Florida. Patrick, what have you found?
Well, as I tell you, we found a lot of disappointed travelers who say what they received by way of a vacation was not what they were promised. They claim all they got was a ticket to trouble. Lovebirds in the lagoon. This Grand Bahama scene looks like the perfect honeymoon. But thanks to some of Florida's sellers of travel certificates, anticipated pleasures in paradise often never materialize for honeymooners.
We can't wait to go home. I can't wait to get home. This was not a honeymoon.
Wayne and Catherine Johnson thought they were getting a wonderful honeymoon trip from Passport International, now known as Incentives International. They say the Daytona company promised a lot more than it delivered.
It was the biggest waste of time, waste of money, and we have to take a honeymoon. We have not yet taken a honeymoon.
According to the Florida Department of Consumer Services, Incentives has more than 200 complaints against it and has signed a temporary restraining order with the Federal Trade Commission. The FTC accused the company of deceptive and unfair trade practices, failure to disclose, and failure to make refunds. This is the Bahamas you expect. Crystal clear emerald waters lapping up on white sandy beaches, your hotel right on the beach. That's what you expect. But sometimes this great experience is shattered by what you didn't expect.
When they get over there, the hotel that was supposed to be on the beach is not on the beach. The hotel's in a neighborhood in downtown Freeport where people feel in danger for their lives.
There was no TV, no telephone, no radio, no anything.
Margie and Earl Burke received a Royal American travel certificate. They say except for port charges, taxes, and a $99 registration fee, the trip was supposed to have been free. But they say it ended up costing them more than $300, but gave them less than they were led to expect.
The hotel, or the motel I should say, was not as nice as it looks in the brochure.
We traveled to Freeport to see for ourselves, and sure enough, the Freeport Inn, a hotel used by many travel certificate companies, does not have a TV, telephone, radio, or hot water. What it does have is plenty of mildew and peeling paint, and something else they don't show you in those vacation brochures, a barbed wire fence around it.
No comment, sir. No comment.
That's all the comment we could get out of the inn's manager. The Victoria Inn has also been used extensively by travel voucher companies. These photographs taken by an angry vacationer show roaches, peeling paint, and a generally run-down condition. The inn's manager says people get what they pay for, not what they expect.
Today, the economy is not the greatest and so forth, but you get some people, if they can get this package deal, they figure, well, they're getting a good deal, and they come on, and sometimes they find that that's the biggest mistake they made.
Well, we tried to talk to several travel certificate companies, and although they would not talk to us on camera, some told me the hundreds of complaints that they get are manageable and that customers are not misled. Well, the mistakes leave travelers, though, with a bad feeling toward the Bahamas, and that concerns Bahamian officials. Tomorrow night, we'll hear from them, and we'll take a look at what Florida is doing to protect consumers. In 1988, the state passed the Sellers of Travel law. It was designed to put an end or at least limit unscrupulous Florida travel deals. However, it didn't take long for holes in the law to be ferreted out by sellers of travel certificates.
To this point, even with the 1988 law, it would appear that these companies are operating almost with impunity.
Yes, they do. And that is really sad to see.
Under the 1988 Sellers of Travel law, travel certificate companies are required to post a bond of between $10,000 and $25,000, depending on how long they've been in business. But they don't have to file any bond or even register with the state if they're registered with the Airline Reporting Corporation, or ARC.
These operators have been very slick because they, as I said, they operate two organizations. They hide behind the legitimate operation. The legitimate operation is sanctioned by the ARC.
More than 300 complaints have been filed with the Department of Consumer Services against JSI Travel and J Sales. Their offices are side by side, and one is ARC registered.
What is your response, basically, to the last count that I got, 356 complaints from the Department of Consumer Services?
J Sales officials wouldn't come out to talk with us, but on the phone, the general manager told me he thought the numbers were manageable. The Attorney General estimates Omega Fun and Travel owes consumers about $30,000, but when they tried to shut the company down, the corporate director sidestepped the order.
This is a case where we got two individuals put out of the travel business, and their lawyer went ahead and incorporated and put himself in as the president of the company and engaged in similar practices as the predecessors.
With that kind of maneuvering, Barnett says it can be difficult to control travel scams.
It is frustrating because we do see some repeat offenders, although we are after them as well. And the fact is that given the resources we have, it's very difficult to go after these people all across the state.
That difficulty has cost thousands of consumers dearly.
Well, I think right from the beginning it was misrepresented because a free cruise basically is you don't have to spend any money except for your expenses when you're over there.
The so-called free vacation cost Shirley and Richard Stigberg more than $400. They never took the trip, and Royal American Holidays has yet to refund the money. You hear similar complaints from all across the country.
It was a scam. Somewhere along the line, our trust was betrayed.
So basically it was rotten. It just ruined my entire vacation.
We've been aggravated half to death about this. So we've been trying to get a trip since last October, almost a year. And we've saved money for this, and it's gone.
It was probably one of the worst vacations I've taken.
The State Department of Consumer Services estimates it receives more than 4,000 travel-related complaints each year, most of them dealing with sellers of travel certificates.
A Call for Action reporter Patrick Comer has been investigating this part of the problem-plagued industry, the travel industry. Patrick joins us now from a newsroom. Patrick, don't we have any laws to protect consumers in something like this?
Well, Jim, yeah, there are some federal laws, for example, but enforcement is difficult and lengthy, and frankly, consumers seldom ever get any refunds back. And in 1988, the state passed a Sellers of Travel law designed to limit travel certificate scams out of Florida. But it didn't take long for companies to find ways around the law.
You get a cruise to Freeport. Free cruise to Freeport.
This is going to be a free cruise.
Free cruise to Freeport for two.
Richard and Shirley Stigberg paid more than $400 for a cruise they never took. They've also never received a refund from Royal American Holidays.
What I'm seeing is that they are just getting away with it. And it's not fair. I received the calls. I was the one who got elderly people crying on the phone.
Espenda's worked for Royal American until his conscience forced him to quit. Although the state attorney general has closed Royal American because of the hundreds of complaints, it's taken the state 6 years to successfully close the company. Weak Florida consumer laws may be to blame.
The fact is that the laws we have on the books today make it tough to go after these companies.
Companies like Omega Fun and Travel in Fort Lauderdale, Shore Travel and Holiday, Passport International, or Incentives International in Daytona Beach, and Vacation Break USA in Fort Lauderdale. Each of these companies has more than 100 consumer complaints filed against them with the Department of Consumer Services. The department says for every one complaint filed, there are probably 10 more out there. Like the other discount travel houses we talked with, Vacation Break USA said there is a problem in the industry, but not with them.
We try and handle everyone. Number one, they got their vacation. All right, what makes ours different is they got their vacation. It's not that we are denied anybody a vacation, and that's been the biggest problem in the industry.
But even those who use travel vouchers often complain. Travelers using vouchers to the Bahamas often say what they got is not what they were promised, and that makes them not want to return to the islands.
It has really caused us some problems because we have these people promising and not delivering.
Gardner says there is little the Bahamian government can do to protect consumers.
What we want you to do over there is to stop them from engaging in deceptive practices.
Besides tougher consumer laws, Assistant Attorney General Barnett says requiring a higher bond would help. Currently, sellers of travel are required to post only a $10,000 to $25,000 bond, leaving many consumers with no hope of refunds.
If you're asking me would I like to see a higher bond, absolutely. If you're asking me do I think that the politicians and people in the legislature are going to support that, that's up to them.
What's going to stop them then?
Possibly a larger bond. $500,000 probably wouldn't even be that outrageous, judging by all these complaints that come in. Or that monies be held in escrow until the actual trips are provided. There must be a better way to handle these problems.
Well, I didn't find anyone who disagreed with Bonta that there must be a better way to handle this problem. A much higher bond and much stiffer consumer protection laws are the two changes most recommended. But don't depend on government to protect you from travel scams. You're going to have to do that yourself. And the single biggest thing that you can do is say no to telemarketers and deal with local travel agents. Deal with a couple of agents. See which one is willing to go to bat for you, work for you, and get you the best price and deal. Now, our Friday freebie today will also help. It's put out by the Federal Trade Commission, and it's called Telemarketing Travel Fraud. Now, here's how to get your Friday freebie. Just write to the Federal Trade Commission, Washington, D.C. 20580, and ask for the brochure, Telemarketing Travel Fraud. If you didn't get the address, get time to write it down. We'll give you the address again at the end of the show. Jim, Lois?
All right, thanks a lot, Patrick. Good advice tonight.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we had an earlier thunderstorm even than yesterday today.